Something that is very difficult to master in issue-by-issue writing with comic books is pacing. Batman issue 23 nails this perfectly, but Secret Warriors #1 kind of fails spectacularly. Hello and welcome to the show with reviews. I'm Auram, and today we're going to talk about pacing in comic books. Just like I said, normally I just review like any comics without like a shred of a thread between them, but just coincidentally, I read Secret Warriors #1, thought it had really bad pacing, and then Batman 23 had really good pacing, so I figured I would isolate those two and just make a nice review based around that. So let's get into it. Okay, so starting off with Batman 23, overall, it's incredible. Again, it's a one-shot starring Batman and Swamp Thing, written by Tom King, and like he just knocks it out of the park constantly. I don't know how the man does it, but he's beautiful. I love it. Apparently comic book writers named Tom just kill it constantly. But yeah, this is a one-shot, a nice little one-shot featuring Batman and Swamp Thing, where Swamp Thing's father, who has a striking resemblance to Alan Moore, funnily enough, he is killed by a mystery man, and Swamp Thing goes to Batman to investigate it. Over the course of the book, Swamp Thing kind of tells Batman this idea that when people die, they're absorbed into the green, which is a force of nature in DC, and they are used in, basically, their life matter, to an extent, is used in, like, the Earth, or other living beings. It's a popular religious idea that is tossed around a lot, and Swamp Thing is kind of trying to make himself at peace with his father's death by telling this to Batman. But towards the end of the issue, you realize that Batman has been being played by Swamp Thing, because Swamp Thing just kind of beats the dude who killed his father up, and Batman's like, what happened to the green? Where's the green? You promised me my parents were fine. And Batman just gets real upset, and it's real pretty, and it's just another Tom King just being like, hey, remember Batman's parents? Yeah, they're still dead. The one-shot serves as kind of a nice decompression issue, which is good, decompression storytelling is something that a lot of writers struggle with, but one-shots like this that are just kind of like wedged between two story arcs are really good, because it gives you a nice breather, especially when, if you read The Button, which was a small crossover story arc between Batman and the Flash, that was riddled with continuity, just plot like shoved down your throat. I love The Button, by the way. This might sound like I'm hating on The Button, but I'm not. There was a lot going on in that story. It was a lot of like overall DC Rebirth plot kind of just being thrown at your face, and this is a nice just self-contained story to decompress. That's why it's called decompression storytelling. Fancy that. So, getting into pacing, the point of this video, and leading into the next review, the pacing in this is set up in a very interesting way, and it's a theme that we're going to see when I start talking about Secret Warriors in a bit, where there are chapter markers, and they're literal chapter markers in Batman 23, where it starts with chapter 1, and I think it goes up to chapter 9, and it's essentially just every page, or every couple pages, there's a new little panel that just says chapter whatever, and then it just kind of, it's a nice break in the story to tell you, or to signify that time has passed, or they're in a new location, and the way that it's utilized here is it's real nice. It comes down to the pacing of it. It's not used awkwardly where you feel like you're getting lost or the story is going too fast. It's just an interesting way of structuring and telling your story, whereas in Secret Warriors, it's kind of not great, but we'll get into that in a minute. So yeah, Batman 23, definitely check it out, even if you're not reading like Tom King's Batman as a whole. Maybe just, here's a good thing, one-shots are good jumping on points. So pick this up if you haven't been reading Batman, check it out, and then, I don't know, if you liked it, then go back and read the rest. If you're still not convinced after this one-shot, go check out my review of the entire Tom King Batman probably up there on my buddy Jay's channel. I reviewed the first 3 story arcs of the series over there, which is I Am Gotham, I Am Suicide, and I Am Bane. Even though I didn't mention I Am Bane by name, I just kind of forgot. But yeah, I reviewed those, so definitely go check out that video. And he's also got a whole series of Batman video playlists if you're still in the mood for Batman after that. So yeah, check it out. So something else I want to touch on very briefly, just because I'm super excited about it. Spoilers for the last issue of Batman and kind of the Button as a whole. In the 3rd issue of the Button, which is also the previous issue of Batman, Thomas Wayne from Flashpoint, who is that universe's Batman, tells Bruce, he's like, hey, stop being Batman, give it up. Go be a father to your son, hang out with him, have a good, grand old time. And Bruce, this leaves Bruce very conflicted, and you see at the end of Flash 22, I believe, which is the 4th part of the Button, I think the last page before the epilogue is Bruce just staring out at the Gotham skyline, and he sees the bat signal, and he just hangs his head after Alfred asks if he's going to answer it. So that's something that I am very interested to see explored, and was worried that Tom King might not actually explore, but because of a tweet, which I'm sure I'm showing right now, he basically confirmed that they're going to dive into that in the next story arc, which I think is also the story arc that they're dealing with the 3 Jokers in, but I could be wrong. Who knows? Either way, I'm real excited about that, because that is just such an interesting thing to toy with Bruce's mind, and Tom King is such a capable writer to be able to tackle that, so very excited about that. But yeah, that's Batman 23. Do all the things I said earlier. Check it out. Check out Jay's video, my review, and all that stuff. Moving on. Alright, so on pretty much the entire flip side of the Batman 23 that was incredible and amazing and Tom King is great, we have Secret Warriors #1, which is just not great. It's not the worst comic in the world, but it's pretty bad. The premise of this series is that Daisy Johnson is forming a new team of Secret Warriors to kind of help the status of Inhumans during Captain America's Secret Empire that's going on right now, and also just generally take down Cap and his Secret Empire. And overall, that's a fine premise. You've got Miss Marvel, you've got Moon Girl, Devil Dinosaur, I think like Karnak and others are thrown in there as well. But in this issue, story basically goes where Daisy Johnson is forming her team, and then she finds like an Inhuman concentration camp, essentially, and tries to liberate them, but the Inhumans are like, yeah, we like it, it's fine here. And like I said, that premise is fine. It seems pretty interesting. Daisy Johnson's a great character, all the characters that she's interacting with are pretty great, but the problem is it's just written really strangely and not great. And this is where that pacing argument comes in. In this issue, there are sort of chapter markers. They're not called chapter markers, but it's the same situation of every couple pages there is big text at the top of the page or in a panel somewhere that gives you a location and a time where that location is. It's essentially a chapter marker. But the problem is, where in Batman 23 they were used as always just a jump forward in time and a small jump forward in time and mostly a change of location, in Secret Warriors they're used as just whatever the hell the writer wanted to use them for. You're basically jumping between 3 different timelines in this one 23-page issue, which is, it just becomes a mess. It's not time travel. It's like flashback and flash forward and like flash middle. I don't think there are any flash forwards, but that it makes it even more confusing because there's like the modern timeline thing, and then there's the before Secret Empire, and then the like during Secret Empire happening or something. It's really confusing and just jarring that the way these chapter markers are laid out and happen. I don't know, something about it is, the pacing's bad. It doesn't, you're not allowed to stay in one of these timelines long enough to cement yourself there and really understand what's going on. And you can use that as a way to make the reader feel unsafe and kind of just like, what the hell's going on? But that's not really what they're going for here, because these time jumps, I don't want to say they happen naturally, but they happen when there's a clear stopping point in the narrative that's happening in the timeline you're already in. So if I had to give an example of a better way to do this, to use these kind of constant jump arounds to make your reader feel just unsafe and jarred, is have like an action scene happening and just so many things are going on, and like a punch is being thrown, and right when that punch is thrown, you go back to a different timeline. You flash back for a couple pages, and then you get back into that action. You don't flash back right after that punch is thrown and the villain is on the ground, because then you're just you've let the reader sit there for maybe a page, and then everything's over, and then you're immediately yanked back. You want to see what's happening next, but it creates this weird disconnect between the reader and what's actually happening in the comic. And I do think that chapter markers like this could work, but just not in a 23-page comic. There's just not enough time not enough page space to use this type of pacing. I will say the art here was really good. It's almost anime-ish, which is to say that it's stylized, but not super stylized to the point where I hate it. But it's real pretty to look at. The colors are very vibrant and nice. There's lots of orange going on in this book because of fire and stuff. But yeah, it's a very pretty comic book, I'll give it that. Honestly, this is just kind of a forgettable issue. I'm probably not going to read more. In fact, at the time of this recording, the second issue to this is out, and I haven't read it. Just because, number one, not super interested in what's going on here, and number two, I guarantee it's gonna be canceled right after Secret Empire's over, when Marvel Legacy hits, because that's how Marvel rolls. They set up 1 billion books during events, and then they cancel them all because they're like, oh, nobody's buying it. Well, maybe nobody's buying it because it's not good, or because you haven't advertised it at all. Okay, so those are the 2 reviews I have for you this week. I was planning on reviewing Secret Empire 2 in this episode, but I feel like I've gone on for long enough already, and I like the idea of keeping this one kind of more self-contained in the pacing argument. Let me know what you guys think about this. This is kind of an interesting episode it's kind of like a melding of Auram's Forum and the show with reviews, where I'm talking about like a practice used in comic book writing, but at the same time I'm reviewing very specific comic books. So what do you think of that? I honestly don't know how I would be able to plan stuff like this, because this was just serendipity. I just happened to read 2 comics that had an interesting through line of one had really good pacing and one had a really bad pacing. So let me know what you think about this type of show with the reviews down there in my pants, in the doobly-doo, in the towel section, whatever else other YouTubers call that. How about the... I was gonna come up with a really witty and clever new name for the down below the video. The Down Under. Leave a link in Australia. Or leave a comment in Australia. There you go. Thanks for watching, as always. I don't know how you guys keep bearing through my garbage-tastic this. I don't know, I feel like this one was more coherent than most, so good on ya. Anyway, next time I don't phase through this monitor for some of the Batman review, because maybe I forgot to change the wallpaper and had to do some editing tricks. But I didn't feel like rotoscoping my hand out when that happened, so you might have seen it go flying through a little bit. The magic's not ruined, I'm just an idiot. I'm sorry.